Welcome. Are you memorizing biology but not really understanding it? You are not alone. Most students get lost in details, atoms, molecules, cells, enzymes, but no one shows you how everything connects. So you end up memorizing, forgetting, and struggling in exams. This course is different. We build your understanding from the ground up, step by step, from the basics of life to complex biological processes. This is not just information, it's a system that help you helps you truly understand biology. Every concept connects, so you finally see the big picture. Who this is for? Perfect for college students, pre-medical and veterinary students, beginners in biology, anyone who struggled before. By the end of this course, biology will finally make sense, and exams you will face them with confidence. Start now and turn biology into your strengths. Enroll today and let's begin. Biology, welcome. Introduction to the biology. Biology is a study of life. While biologists have made great strides in discovering things on Earth, there are still many new things to learn. The first fundamental question are: what is life? What does it mean to have life? These inquiries are essential to the discoveries that biologists find every day. With such a vast scope of information, biologists must organize these discoveries that will stand the test of time. We introduce the major topics that biologists study and the theories they use and apply to their work. Science, in general, is knowing. Scientists search for knowledge through inquiry, which is a way to questioning and explaining phenomena that occur in nature. Let's begin by exploring how biologists and researchers use the scientific method in the scientific inquiry of life. Like all sciences, is a social enterprise like politics or the art. The methods of science include careful observation, record keeping, logical and mathematical reasoning, experimentation, and submitting conclusions to the others. Science also requires considerable imagination and creativity. A well-designed experiment is commonly described as elegant and beautiful. Like politics, science has considerable practical implications, and some science is dedicated to practical applications such as the prevention of disease. Other science proceeds largely motivated by curiosity. Whatever its goal, there is no doubt that science, including biology, has transformed human existence and will continue to do so. Biologists may choose to study Escherichia coli, a bacterium that is normal resident of our digestive tract, but which is also sometimes responsible for disease outbreak. In this micrograph, the bacterium is visualized using scanning electron microscope and digital colorization. The nature of science. What's the nature of science? Biology is a science, but what exactly is science? What does the study of biology share with other scientific disciplines? Science, from the Latin scientia, meaning knowledge, can be defined as knowledge about the natural world. Science is a very specific way of learning or knowing about the world. The history of past 500 years demonstrates that science is a very powerful way of knowing about the world. It's largely responsible for the technological evolution that has taken place during this time. There are, however, areas of knowledge and human experience that the method of science can't be applied to. This includes such things as answering purely moral questions, atheistic questions, what can be generally categorized as spiritual questions. Science can't investigate these areas because they are outside the alarm of material phenomena, the phenomena of matter and energy, and they can't be observed and measured. Science method is a method of search with defined steps that include experiment and careful observation. The step of the scientific method will be examined in detail later, but one of the most important aspects of this method is the testing of hypotheses. Hypothesis is a suggested explanation for an event which can be tested. Hypotheses or tentative explanation are generally produced with the context of scientific theory. Scientific theory is generally accepted through test and confirmed explanation for set of observation or phenomena. Scientific theory is the foundation of scientific knowledge. In addition, in many scientific disciplines, so in biology, there are scientific laws, often expressed in mathematical formulas, like in physics, which describe how elements of nature will behave under certain specific conditions. There is not an evolution of hypotheses or theories to laws as if they represent some increase in certainty about the world. Hypotheses are the day-to-day material that scientists work with, and they are developed within the context of theories. Laws are concise descriptions of parts of the world that are amenable to formulaic or mathematical description. Natural science. What would you expect to see in a museum of natural science? Frogs, plants, dinosaurs, skeletons exhibit about how their brain functions, a planetarium, games, and minerals, or maybe all of the above. Science includes such diverse fields as astronomy, biology, computer science, geology, physics, chemistry, and mathematics. However, these fields of science related to the physics world and its phenomena and processes are considerable natural science. Thus, a museum of natural science might contain any of items listed above. There is no complete agreement when it comes to define what the natural science include. For some experts, the natural sciences are astronomy, biology, chemistry, science, and physics. Other scholars choose to divide natural science into life sciences, which study living things and include biology, and physical science, which study non-living matter and include astronomy, physics, and chemistry. Some disciplines such as biophysics and biochemistry build on two sciences and are interdisciplinary. Scientific inquiry. One thing is common to all forms of science, an ultimate goal to know. Curiosity and inquiry are the driving force for the development of science. Scientists seek to understand the world and the way it operates. Two methods of logical thinking are used: inductive reasoning and deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is a form of logical thinking that uses related observation to arrive at a general conclusion. This type of reasoning is common in descriptive science. A life scientist, such as biologists, make observations and record them. These data can be qualitative, descriptive, or quantitative, consisting of numbers, and the raw data can be supplemented with drawing, picture, photos, videos. From many observations, the scientist can infer conclusions, inductions based on evidence. Inductive reasoning involves formulating generalization inferred from careful observation and analysis of large amount of data. Brain studies often work this way. Many brains are observed while people are doing a task. The part of the brain that light up indicating activity is then demonstrated to be the part controlling the response to that task. Deductive reasoning. Deduction is the type of logic used in hypothesis-based science. In deductive reasoning, the pattern of thinking moves in opposite direction as compared to inductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning is a form of logical thinking that uses general principles or rules to predict scientific results. From those general principles, a scientist can deduce and predict the scientific result that would be valid as long as the general principles are valid. For example, a prediction would be that if the climate is becoming warmer in a region, the distribution of plants and animals should change. Comparisons have been made between distributions in the past and the present, and the many changes that have been found are consistent with warming climate. Finding the change in distribution is evidence that the climate change conclusion is a valid one. Both types of logical thinking are related to the two main pathways of scientific study: descriptive science and hypothesis-based. Descriptive or discovery science aims to observe, explore, discover, while hypothesis-based science begins with a specific question or a problem or a potential answer or solution that can be tested. The boundary between these two forms of study is often blurred because most scientific endeavors combine both approaches. Observation leads to question leads to forming a hypothesis as a possible answer to those questions, and then the hypothesis is tested. Thus, descriptive science and hypothesis-based science are in continuous dialogue. Hypothesis testing. Biologists study the living world by posing questions about it and seeking science-based response. This approach is common to other science as well as is often referred to as the scientific method. The scientific method was used even in ancient times, but it was first documented by England Sir Francis Bacon, who lived between 1561 to 1626, who set up inductive methods for scientific inquiry. The scientific method is not exclusively used by biologists, but can be applied to almost anything as logical problem-solving method. The scientific process typically starts with observation of a problem to be solved that leads to a question. Why is the classroom so warm? Let's think about a simple problem that starts with an observation and apply the scientific method to solve the problem. One Monday morning, a student arrived at the class and quickly discovered that the classroom is too warm. That is an observation that also describes a problem. The classroom is too warm. The student then asked the question, why is the classroom so warm? Recall that hypothesis is a suggested explanation that can be tested to solve a problem. Several hypotheses may be proposed. For example, one hypothesis might be the classroom is warm because no one turned on the air conditioning, but could be other response to the question, and therefore other hypotheses may be proposed. A second hypothesis might be classroom is warm because there is power failure, also the air conditioning doesn't work. Once a hypothesis has been selected, a prediction may be made. A prediction is similar to hypothesis, but it typically has the format of then, if, then. For example, the prediction for the first hypothesis might be if the student turns on the air conditioning, then the classroom will no longer be too warm. A hypothesis must be testable to ensure that it's valid. For example, a hypothesis that depend on that peer think is not testable because it can never be known what a peer thinks. It should also be falsifiable, meaning that it can be disproven by experimental results. An example of an unfalsifiable hypothesis, potential birth of Venus in beautiful. There is no experiment that might show this statement to be false. To test a hypothesis, a researcher will conduct one or more experiments designed to eliminate one or more of the hypotheses. This important hypothesis can be disproven, eliminated, but can never be proven. Science doesn't deal in proofs like mathematics. If an experiment fails to disprove hypothesis, then we find support for the explanation. But it's not to say that down the road a better explanation will not be found, or more carefully designed experiment will be found to falsify the hypothesis. Each experiment will have one or more variables and one or more controls. A variable is any part of the experiment that can vary and change during the experiment. A control is a part of the experiment that doesn't change. Look for the variable and controls in the experiment that follows. As a simple example, an experiment might be conducted to test the hypothesis that phosphate limits the growth of algae in freshwater ponds. A series of artificial ponds are filled with water, and half of them are treated by adding phosphate each week, while the other half are treated by adding a salt that is not to be used by algae. The variable there is phosphate or lack of phosphate. The experiment or treatment cases are the bonds with added phosphate, and the control bonds are those with sometimes inert added as the salt. Just adding something is also controlled against the possibility that adding extra matter to the bond has an effect. If the treated bonds show less growth of algae, then we have found support for our hypothesis. If they don't, then we reject our hypothesis. Be aware that rejecting one hypothesis doesn't determine whether or not the other hypothesis can be accepted. It simply eliminates one hypothesis that is not valid. Using the scientific method, the hypotheses that are inconsistent with experimental data are rejected. In recent years, new approach of testing hypotheses has developed as a result of an exponential growth of data deposited in various databases. Using computer algorithm and static analysis of data in database, a new field of so-called data research, also referred as Asilico research, provide new methods to data analysis and their interpretation. This will increase demand for specialists in both biology and computer science and the promising career opportunity. Here, the steps of hypothesis: make an observation, ask a question, form a hypothesis that answer the question, make a prediction based on the hypothesis, do an experiment to test the prediction, analyze the result, the answer for not supported or supported, report the result, try again. In the example below, the scientific method is used to solve an everyday problem. Which part in the example below is hypothesis, which is a prediction based on the result of experiment? Is the hypothesis supported? If it's not supported, propose some alternative hypothesis. My toaster doesn't toast my bread. Why doesn't my toaster work? There is something wrong with the electrical outlet. If something is wrong with the outlet, my coffee maker also will not work. Then plugged into it. I plugged my coffee maker into the outlet. My coffee maker works. In practice, the scientific method is not as rigid and structured as it might at first appear. Sometimes an experiment leads to conclusions that favor a change in approach. Often experiments bring entirely new scientific questions to the puzzle. Many times science doesn't operate in a linear fashion. Instead, scientists continually draw inference and make generalization, finding patterns as their research proceeds. Scientific reasoning is more complex than the scientific method alone suggests. Basic and applied science. The scientific community has been debating for the last few decades about the value of different types of science. Is it valuable to pursue science for the sake of simply gaining knowledge, or does scientific knowledge only have worth if we can apply it to solving, say, a specific problem or bettering our lives? This question focuses on the difference between two types of science: basic science and applied science. Basic science, or pure science, seeks to expand knowledge regardless of the short-term application of that knowledge. It's not focused on developing a product or a service of immediate public or commercial value. The immediate goal of basic science is knowledge for knowledge's sake, though this doesn't mean that in the end it may not result in an application, but we seek knowledge. In contrast, applied science or technology aims to use science to solve real-world problems, making it possible, for example, to improve a crop yield, find a cure for a particular disease, or save animals threatened by natural disaster. In applied science, the problem is usually defined for the researcher. Some individuals may perceive applied science as useful and the basic science as useless. A question these people might pose to a scientist advocating the knowledge acquisition would be, what for? A careful look at the history of science, however, reveals that basic knowledge has resulted in many remarkable applications of great value. Many scientists think that basic understanding of science is necessary before an application is developed. Therefore, applied science relies on the results generated through basic science. Other scientists think that it's time to move on from basic science and instead to find a solution to actual problems. Both approaches are valid. It's true that there are problems that demand immediate attention. However, few solutions could be found without the help of the knowledge generated through basic science. One example how basic and applied science can work together to solve practical problems occurred after the discovery of DNA structure lead to an understanding of the molecular mechanism governing DNA application. Strands of DNA unique in every human are found in our cells, where they provide the instructions necessary for life. During the DNA replication, new copies of DNA are made. Shortly before a cell divides to form new cells, understanding the mechanisms of DNA replication enables science to develop laboratory techniques that are now used to identify genetic diseases, pinpoint individuals who were at a crime scene, and determine paternity. Without basic science, it's unlikely that applied science could exist. Another example of link between basic and applied research in Human Genome Project is the Human Genome Project, a study in which each human chromosome was analyzed and mapped to determine the precise sequence of DNA subunits and the exact location of each gene. The gene is the basic unit of heredity, represented by a specific DNA segment that the code for functional molecule. Other mechanisms have also been studied as part of this project to gain better understanding of human chromosome. The Human Genome Project relied on basic research carried out with non-human organisms and later with the human genome. An important end goal eventually became using the data for applied research seeking cure for genetically related disease. While research efforts in both basic science and applied science are usually carefully planned, it's important to note that some discoveries are made by serendipity, that is, by means of fortunate accident or lucky surprise. Penicillin was discovered when biologist Alexander Fleming accidentally left a petri dishes of Staphylococcus bacteria open. An unwanted mold grew, killing the bacteria. The mold turned out to be penicillin, and a new antibiotic was discovered. Even in the highly organized world of science, luck, when combined with an observant, curious mind, can lead to unexpected breakthrough. Reporting scientific work, whether scientific research is basic science or applied science, scientists must share their findings for other researchers to expand and build upon their discoveries. Communication and collaboration within and between sub-disciplines of science are key to advancement knowledge in science. For this reason, an important aspect of scientists' work is disseminating results and communicating with peers. Scientists can share results by presenting them at a scientific meeting or conferences, but this approach can reach only the limited few who are present. Instead, most scientists present the result in peer-reviewed articles that are published in scientific journals. Peer-reviewed articles are scientific papers that are reviewed, usually anonymous, by scientist colleagues or peers. These colleagues are qualified individuals, often experts in the same research area, who judge whether or not the science work is suitable for publication. The process of peer review helps to ensure that the research described in the scientific paper or grant proposal is original, significantly logical, and true. Grant proposals, which are requests for research funding, are also subject to peer review. Scientists publish their work so their scientists can reproduce their experiment under similar or different conditions to expand on the findings. There are many journals and popular press that use peer review system. A large number of online open access journals with articles available without cost are now available, many of which use rigorous peer review system, but some of which are not. Results of any study published in these forums without peer review are not reliable and should not form the basis for other scientific work. In one exception, journal may also allow researchers to seek personal communication from another researcher about unpublished results which the cited resource permission. Thank you. Basic biology, introduction to biology, critical thinking in biology, characteristic of life, biological classification. Section 2, chemistry of the life, atoms and molecules, the importance of water, organic compounds, chemical reaction enzymes, cell theory. Section 3, cell structure and function, chemical energy and ATP, photosynthesis, cellular respiration, mitosis, meiosis. In section 4, bacterial, virus, and virions. The protist kingdom, protozoa, algae, and molds. Fungi, the fungi kingdom, fungi reproduction, ecology of the fungi. Plants, the plant kingdom, plant structure and function, plant reproduction, plant adaptation. Animals, the animal kingdom, vertebrate, arthropods, chordata, invertebrate, vertebrate, the human body, body system and homeostasis, the integumentary system, molecular and skeletal system, nervous and endocrine system, respiration, circulatory system, digestive and excretory system, the immune system, the reproductive system, genetics, introduction to genetics, DNA and RNA, genetic engineering, life on the earth, evolution and the history of life, ecosystem and the habitats, the ecosystem, atoms and the molecules. How can we describe the matter? Matter describe everything that we can touch, taste, see, smell, or feel. Matter is anything that has mass, takes up space. The smallest unit of matter is the atom. Atoms are so small that they can't be seen by the human eye or by the compound microscope. Matter is anything that has mass and take up space. Matter, atom, the smallest unit of the matter. From the Greek word that means can't be divided, atom. As an atom absorbs energy in the form of heat, light, sound, it vibrates and then release that energy. So energy comes in the form of light, sound and heat. Because atoms prefer to have as little energy as possible. For example, when the sun bright light shines on earth, it excites the atom in the atmosphere, causing them to release energy, mostly in the form of heat. Atoms are most stable. The less energy they have, all atoms try to release energy to be as stable as possible. In science, cold temperature is defined as absence of heat. This is why outer space, an environment with few to no atoms, has temperature that can be as low as minus 455 degrees Fahrenheit. Element, any substance that can't be broken down into any simpler chemical substance. There are 118 elements. Scientists have determined that there are around 118 different kinds of atoms that exist in nature. Different types of atoms are called elements, and each has been listed in periodic table. Let's have a look on the periodic table. The periodic table, this is its structure. Dmitry Ivanovich Mendeleev, a Russian scientist, invented the periodic table in 1869. The periodic table is like a huge grid in which all the elements are organized. Each element sits in a specific place in the grid according to its atomic number. The number of protons in an element defines its position in the table according to modern periodic law. Symbols, numbers, and the names of the periodic table. Each element on the periodic table is assigned a chemical symbol, which is one or two letters. The first letter is always uppercase, and the second letter, if there is one, is lowercase. For example, sodium Na, magnesium Mg, sulfur is S. Element composed of one type of atom. Periodic table, a table of all the elements. Chemical symbol, one or two letters that represent each element. Each square on the periodic table has the same information. The atomic number, here from the atomic number, this the chemical symbol, this the element name, lithium, the average atomic mass. The atomic mass is the average mass of a typical atom of that element. The periodic table is organized by rows and columns. A horizontal row is called a period. A vertical column is called group, and this is period. A horizontal row is called period, and the vertical column is called group or family. This is group and this is period. The elements are arranged from left to right by increasing atomic number as you go across from the left to right. Each element has one or more electron and one more proton than the element to the left of it. For example, hydrogen has one proton, helium has two protons, and so on. Element in the same column has similar physical and chemical properties. Despite elements being different from one another, they are all made up of the same three particles: protons, neutrons, electrons. All three of these elements are referred to as subatomic particle. Subatomic particle, a substance that is smaller than an atom. Here we find neutron, proton, electron. Sub is a prefix meaning under or below. Subatomic means below an atom. Subatomic particle refers to particles that are below an atom in size. All three particles have different quantities. Both proton and electron contain electrical charges or quantities of electricity that can be either positive or negative. Proton hold a positive electrical charge. Electron hold a negative charge. Particles with the same electrical charge tend to repel one another, while those with opposite charge attract one another. Neutrons don't have charge. Neutrons play a key role in the structure of the atom. The center of the atom is the nucleus, which is made of both proton and neutron. The proton within the nucleus gives it a positive charge, which attracts the negative charged electron, causing the electron to orbit, move around the nucleus. Atoms that have the same number of protons but different number of neutrons are called isotopes. Atoms that have the same number of protons but different number of neutrons are called isotopes. Because atoms are so small, scientists need to use models to represent them. However, because the atom can't be seen by humans, the model of the atom has changed many times as scientists have learned more about it. Here, the Rutherford model showed the atom as a tiny solar system with electrons orbiting around the nucleus. Here the nucleus, the electron, and the orbit path. The Rutherford model for the atom, named after Ernest Rutherford, electron shell. Electrons move outside the nucleus in various shells or energy levels. Think of shell as rings. The rings closer to the nucleus is number 1, followed by the ring around it number 2, which then has a ring around it number 3, and so on as they extend outward. The greater the energy of the electron, the higher level shell it occupies. Away from the sun, some planets orbit at certain distances. We speak about the relationship between nucleus and the electron shell, and similarity to relation between planet and the sun. Within the solar system, planets orbit at certain distance away from the sun. Some planets such as Mercury, Venus, Earth have smaller orbit, while Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn have larger orbit. All the planets' orbits are affected by the gravity of the sun. The planets that are farthest from the sun feel less of its gravity. An atom acts as its own solar system. The shells are the orbit taken by electrons, and the nucleus is the center that the electrons navigate around. The electrons and the shells closest to the nucleus have the smallest orbits are referred to as core electrons. Core electrons have the strongest attractive force to the positive charge nucleus, and so they are the most stable. Stable subatomic particles have the lowest energy within their atom core. Electron, the electron in the shell closest to the nucleus. The electron in the shell farthest from the nucleus, those after the largest orbit, are called valence electrons. Valence electrons are more unstable than core electron and have the highest energy level because of its they are more likely to break away from the influence of the nucleus. There can be more than one valence electron with a shell. The maximum number of valence electrons in any orbit is dependent on how small the orbit. The closer the shell is the nucleus to the fewer electrons there are. There is a nucleus, here the core electron, here the valence electron. This due to the negative charge of each electron. If there were too many electrons in the small orbit, they would repel one another. So this would cause the energy of the whole atom to increase, leading to a more unstable atom. The larger the orbit becomes, the more electrons can fit in it without influencing one another. The shell closest to the nucleus holds a maximum of 2 electrons, the next shell holds a maximum of 8, and the third holds a maximum of 18. Because of atom preference for stability, electron will always occupy the shell closest to the nucleus, the core shell, before occupying the shell farthest away. Here the proton in this color, the core electron, here the neutron, the Bohr model of atom, including the electrical shell, but it's based on orbiting electrons, like the Rutherford model. Bohr model, the Danish physicist, suggests this model. The Bohr model shows 8 protons and neutron in the nucleus of the atom and 2 energy levels with 8 electrons. The bonding, atomic bonding, an atom usually seeks to be at its lowest energy state so that it can remain stable. There are 2 exceptions. Energy is added to it. An atom valence electron shell is not completely filled. Valence electrons contain higher energy than other electrons in an atom. When an electron shell is filled, all electrons in that shell behave similarly to core electron, increasing the atom stability and lowering its energy. An incomplete valence shell causes attractive force from the positive charged nucleus to spill out of the atom. Electrons that are nearly will move toward the nucleus and plug those leaks, completing the valence shell in the process. Positive charge on the nucleus attract the outside electron. The atom with an incomplete valence shell is like a leaky cup of water. Electron plug the leaks and complete the valence shell. There are many atoms that have incomplete valence shell. These atoms participate in atomic bonding, the process where atoms interact with other atoms to lower their energy. There are different types of atomic bonding. One of the most prevalent covalent bonding. During the process, atoms share pair of electrons. The shared pairs of electrons fill the outermost energy level of the bonding. Covalence bonding, carbon and 4 hydrogen. A carbon atom needs 4 electrons to fill its outer energy shell. It bonds with 4 hydrogen atoms to share 1 electron from each other. Here the electron of carbon, 1 electron from hydrogen, 1 electron from hydrogen, 1 electron from carbon, and this is a covalent bond. Let's speak about the molecule and the compound. In brief, Compound, a group of atoms bonded together. Compound, combination of two or more different atoms. Atom will bond with as many other atoms as necessary to complete their shells. These groupings are called molecules. If a molecule is made of two or more different elements, it's called a compound. Some elements are diatomic, meaning that they exist as molecules composed of the same atom. Diatomic molecules include oxygen, hydrogen, nitrogen, bromide, iodine, fluorine, chlorine. Diatomic hydrogen matter. Scientists define any that takes up space as matter, created by the various ways that atom bond. Matter can appear in different states: solid, liquid, gas. The arrangement of the molecule or atom, generally called particle, and how they behave determine the characteristic of substance. Here, the solid state, the definition: tightly packed atom. Example: rock, ice, wood, liquid. Atoms are close to one another but not tightly packed together. The example: water, blood, gasoline, gas. Atoms are relatively distant from one another. The example: air, water, vapor, carbon dioxide. You check your knowledge. Some question: how many elements have been catalogued in the periodic table? What three particles are atoms made of? What does it mean to say that a particle is subatomic? What do proton and electron contain that a neutron does not? What electrons are electrons with shell close to the nucleus? What is the reason for the small number of electrons in the shell closest to the nucleus? Why does an atom bond? What occurs in the covalent bond? What is the difference between an atom and a molecule? What is the difference between a solid and gas? This is the answer. How many elements have been catalogued in the periodic table? 118. What three particles are atoms made of? Electron, proton, neutron. What does it mean to say that particle is subatomic? A subatomic particle is a particle that is smaller than an atom. What do proton and electron contain that a neutron doesn't? Electrical charge. Electrons are electrons with shell close to the nucleus. Core electron, close to the nucleus. Core electron. What is the reason for a small number of electrons in the shell closest to the nucleus? The shell closest to the nucleus has a small orbit. Small number of electrons ensure that they don't interfere with one another. Why does an atom bond? The bond to lower its energy and increase its stability. What occurs in the covalent bond? Atoms share their electrons with one another. What is the difference between an atom and a molecule? An atom is the smallest unit of an element, which may or may not exist independently. A molecule is a group of atoms bound together. What is the difference between a solid and a gas? In a solid, atoms are tightly packed together. In gas, atoms are farther apart. Thank you. Animals and plants or rely on one another to live. Organisms like human and animals and plants are all rely on one another. Many organisms grow, change, reproduce, die. The series of changes that an organism can go through are called life cycle. So we think about biology. What is biology? The study of life. Biology, study of life. Biologist, scientists who study biology. Organism, a living thing. Here, an important part of biology is studying how organisms interact and the laws that apply to their life cycle. Here, the human life cycle, childhood, adolescence, and adulthood, and fertilization, infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and fertilization is the cycle. Biology is called life science or natural science because it's the study of life forms in nature. Biology comes from the Greek words bios, meaning life, logia, meaning the study of. Biology translates to the study of life. Aristotle is said to be the first biologist. He developed the first organized study of the natural world. Types of biology: anatomy, botany, ecology, microbiology, pathology, pharmacology, physiology, taxonomy, toxicology, zoology. These branches, biology is divided into many branches or disciplines. The main disciplines are anatomy, the body structure of the organism; botany, the plants, study of plants; the ecology, the relationship between various organisms; microbiology, tiny organisms; pathology, the cause and the effect of disease; pharmacology, the use and the effect of drugs; physiology, the function of living organisms and their parts; taxonomy, the classification of microorganisms; toxicology, the nature and effect of poison; zoology, the animal biologists use their specialized knowledge in various ways. There are biologists who work as researchers on food, product, medicine, analyzing disease. Others use their knowledge to advance agriculture or provide solutions to environmental issues. The tool of the biologist: specialized tools are sometimes used to study organisms in specific branches of biology. For example, a botanist may need tools like trowel and shears to collect specimens, while an anatomist might work with tweezers and scalpels. Microscope: most biologists, regardless of their branch, rely on some types of imaging tool. The microscope was the first imaging tool invented. A microscope is a tool that provides an enlarged image of an object. The most basic concept in biology, that organisms are made up of cells, would not have been discovered without microscope. There are two general types of microscope. Compound microscope use visible light as a source of magnifying specimens up to 1,500 times their actual size. You can change the magnification by rotating two different lenses that is close to the slide. Electron microscope use electron beams as a source of illumination and electron lenses to help magnify specimens up to 100,000 times their actual size. All scientists begin their experiment with observation. A microscope helps scientists see tiny organisms and understand the fine detail of cells, fiber, and other structure invisible to the naked eye. There are various types of compound and electron microscope. This microscope can be specialized to fit biologist field of study. However, they all have the same basic function: to show detail in objects that can't be seen by the naked human eye. Here the microscope, the light microscope, it has two lenses, here the ocular and the objective. The ocular lens that we look through and the two objective lenses that are closer to the slide. The larger the magnification, the longer the objective lens. Careful not to crash the slide when you focus at a high magnification. Electron microscope are similar to compound light microscope, except they are rely on tiny particle called electron instead of light to show the specimen. There are two main types of electron: transmission electron microscope and the scanning electron microscope. Other imaging tools. X-ray is another imaging tool used in biology. It's most commonly used in research and the practice of medicine. X-ray are a type of radiation that are observed by various things when a human or animal undergoes an X-ray. The image taken of their body reveals the structure and that observed the most radiation in the picture. Bones appear white because the calcium in them absorbs the most radiation. Every else in the body observes less radiation, causing the color of the organ to look gray or black. Here, the radiation transmission of energy in the form of waves through an object. Magnetic resonant imaging scan, MRI, are another form of imaging used in medicine. MRI use a magnet and radio waves to produce detailed image of internal organs and muscle that might not show up in X-ray. Many microscope and radiation-based imaging tools are linked to computer programs to create and visualize the image in a more efficient manner. Check your knowledge. What is biology? Biology is also known as the natural science. What is the life cycle? Name the stages of human life cycle. What is the purpose of having different discipline of biology? Anatomy is a discipline that studies what is the function of the tools for scientists. What is the purpose of the microscope? How can you magnify a specimen using a compound microscope? Why do bones show up on an X-ray image? What does magnetic resonance imaging show in the body? Here the answers. Biology is the study of life. Natural or life, the biology, natural science. The life cycle is a change that an organism goes through. The human life cycle include infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and reproduction. Discipline helps scientists focus on scientific parts of the biology. The structure of the body, the anatomy, study the structure of the body. Tool help scientists study their discipline. Number 6, what is the function of tools for scientists? Tools help scientists study their discipline. Number 7, what is the purpose of a microscope? Microscope show detail that can't be seen by the ordinary human vision. Number 8, the question was, how can you magnify a specimen using compound microscope? You can magnify a specimen by rotating to a lens that is closer to the slide. Why do bones show up on an X-ray? The answer is bones absorb the X-ray radiation. What does magnetic resonant imaging show in the body? Organs and muscle, the soft tissues. Exactly. Thank you. Welcome. In this lecture, we speak about the metabolism and the energy. Metabolism simply refers to the sum total of every chemical reaction in every organism. Metabolism refers to the sum of total every reaction in every organism. Cells use enzymes and the metabolic pathway to conduct these chemical reactions. It's essential to understand the reaction that comprise metabolism to learn how organisms acquire and use energy to survive. Since this process is quite complicated, what's energy and the concept of thermodynamics, some laws of thermodynamics, it's famous in physics more than in biology and chemistry. Physics study it in full detail. In a course of physics, you can see these laws and the equation for it. Energy flows through all living systems. The chemical reactions that build and break down energy contain compounds are vital to involve the building and breaking down through anabolism and catabolism, respectively. Notice that all of these pathways involve chemical reactions that require enzymes, which are biological catalysts. We will discuss this in later. Remember that the laws of thermodynamics state that energy is neither created nor destroyed, but transformed from one form to another. Biochemical reactions follow these same laws of thermodynamics, which predict whether reaction will occur spontaneously or without any energy required. The concept of energy. What is energy? Simply, it's defined as the ability to do work. It exists in many forms, including mechanical energy, and the thermal energy, mechanical energy, electrical energy, chemical energy, and nuclear energy. Position, kinetic energy, the potential energy of a lifted object. If you hold a ball in your hand and raise it, it takes this energy, and it's called kinetic energy. If you leave it to move, it's a motion. The energy associated with the temperature of an object, the heat, the thermal energy. Electrical energy, the energy associated with the flow of electrical charge. Electrical energy, its electrons move from one side to another. Chemical energy. Nuclear energy, the energy stored in the nucleus of an atom. Metabolism. The metabolic process describes the two major kinds of metabolic pathways, linear and cyclical. Pay attention to the description for catabolic and anabolic pathway in cellular metabolism. We need energy inside the cell. There are two types of metabolism, catabolism and metabolism. Catabolism breaks down molecules, create energy, while anabolism assembles molecules, require energy. Both of them are two types of the metabolism. One need energy and one produce energy. While anabolism assemble molecules, you should also be able to define the component of metabolic pathway, the reactant, substrate and molecule, intermediate, substrate, and the final product. Like any reaction, there is reactant and product and intermediate substrate. Metabolism, in definition, is essential the life force of your body on cellular level. It refers to all the complex chemical reactions that happen within your cells to keep you going. It refers to all complex chemical reactions that happen within your cells to keep you going. Britannica defines metabolism as the chemical processes by which a plant or an animal uses food, water, to grow and heal and to make energy. The processes by which a plant or an animal uses food, water, to grow and heal and to make energy. What is metabolism? Metabolism this chemical reaction in the body cells that change food into energy. Our bodies need this energy to do everything from moving to thinking to growing. Specific protein in the body control this chemical reaction of metabolism. Thousands of metabolic reactions happen at the same time, all regulated by the body to keep our cells healthy and working. How does metabolism work? Simply break down the large molecule into simple molecule in digestion. In the digestive system, we break protein into amino acids and fat into fatty acids, carbohydrate into simple sugar, for example glucose or lactose or fructose. The component, the body can use sugar, amino acid and fatty acid as energy sources when needed. These compounds are absorbed into the blood from the intestine, from the villi of the intestine, as we know in physiology. Carry these to the cells all over the body. The glucose, especially, the process of metabolism is two ways straight, which two main parts: the anabolism and the catabolism. Two processes. This is the anabolism is the building up process. It uses energy and raw material from food to create new molecules and tissues, like repairing muscle and building bones. Catabolism, this is the breaking down process. It breaks down complex molecules from food and release energy the body can use. After they enter the cell, other enzymes act to speed up or regulate the chemical reaction involved with metabolizing these compounds. During this process, the energy from these compounds can be released for use by the body or stored in the body tissue, especially the liver, muscle and body fat. Metabolism is a balancing act involving two kinds of activities that go on at the same time: building up body tissue and the energy store, which called anabolism; breaking down body tissue and the energy store to get more fuel for body function, and they call catabolism. These two processes occur together spontaneously. Sometimes the regulation, many factors influence your metabolic rate, which is the speed with which these reactions occur. These factors involve age, sex, muscle mass and physical activity. The anabolism, constructive metabolism, is all about building and storing. It supports the growth of new cells, the maintenance of the body tissue, and the storage of energy for the future use. In anabolism, small molecules change into larger, more complex molecules of carbohydrate, protein, fat. Catabolism, destructive metabolism, is the process that produces the energy need for all activities in the cell until break down large molecules, mostly carb and fat, to release energy. And this provides fuel for anabolism, heat the body, and enable the muscle to contract and the body to move. As complex chemical units break down into more simple substances, the body releases the waste product through the skin, kidney, lung, intestine. What control metabolism? Several hormones of the endocrine system help control the rate and the direction of the metabolism. Thyroxine, a hormone made and released by the thyroid gland, plays a key role in determining how fast or slow the chemical reaction of the metabolism go in a person's body. Pancreas secretes hormone that help determine whether the body main metabolism activity at any one time are anabolic or catabolic. For example, more anabolic activity usually happen after you eat a meal. That because eating increases the body level of glucose, the body's most important fuel. The pancreas senses this increasing glucose level and release hormone called insulin, which signals cells to increase their anabolic activity. Metabolism is a complicated chemical process. Not surprising that many people think of it in simple sense as something that influences how easy your body gain or lose weight. That is where calories come in. calorie is a unit that measures how much energy a particular food provides to the body. A chocolate bar has more calories than an apple, so it provides the body with more energy, and sometimes that can be too much of good thing. Just as a car stores gas in the gas tank until it needed to fuel the engine, the body stores calories primarily as fat. If you overfill a car's gas tank, it spills over onto the pavement. Likewise, when a person eats too many calories, they spill over in the form of excess body fat. The number of calories sometimes burned in a day is affected by how much that person exercises, the amount of fat and muscle in his or her body, and the person's basal metabolic rate, BMR, is a measure of the rate at which a person's body burns energy in the form of calories while at rest. The BMR, basic metabolic, can play a role in the person's tendency to gain weight. For example, someone with a low basic metabolic rate, therefore burn fewer calories with at rest or sleeping, will tend to gain more pounds of body fat over time than a similar sized person with an average BMR, basic metabolic rate, who eats the same amount of food and gets the same amount of exercise. There is a currency: you expend or you gain. The energy or calories you gain and the calories you expend. You compare both of them. Which of which is more you gain or you lose? Fat and weight. Basic metabolic rate can be affected by a person's genes and by some health problems. It's also influenced by body composition. People with more muscle and less fat generally have higher body metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate. But people can change their basal metabolic rate in certain ways. For example, a person who exercises more not only burns more calories but becomes more physically fit, which increases his or her basal metabolic rate. Thank you. Metabolism. The metabolic process describes the two major kinds of metabolic pathways, linear and cyclical. Pay attention to the description for catabolic and anabolic pathway in cellular metabolism. We need energy inside the cell. There are two types of metabolism: catabolism and metabolism. Catabolism breaks down molecules, create energy, while anabolism assembles molecules, require energy. Both of them are two types of the metabolism. One need energy and one produce energy. While anabolism assemble molecules, you should also be able to define the component of metabolic pathway, the reactant, substrate and molecule, intermediate, substrate, and the final product. Like any reaction, there is reactant and product and intermediate substrate. Metabolism, in definition, is essential the life force of your body on cellular level. It refers to all the complex chemical reactions that happen within your cells to keep you going. It refers to all complex chemical reactions that happen within your cells to keep you going. Britannica defines metabolism as the chemical processes by which a plant or an animal uses food, water, to grow and heal and to make energy. The processes by which a plant or an animal uses food, water, to grow and heal and to make energy. What is metabolism? Metabolism, this chemical reaction in the body cells that change food into energy. Our bodies need this energy to do everything from moving to thinking to growing. Specific protein in the body control the chemical reaction of metabolism. Thousands of metabolic reactions happen at the same time, all regulated by the body to keep our cells healthy and working. How does metabolism work? Simply break down the large molecule into simple molecule in digestion. In the digestive system, we break protein into amino acids and fat into fatty acids, carbohydrate into simple sugar, for example glucose or lactose or fructose. The component, the body can use sugar, amino acid and fatty acid as energy sources when needed. These compounds are absorbed into the blood from the intestine, from the villi of the intestine, as we know in physiology. Carry these to the cells all over the body. The glucose, especially, the process of metabolism is two ways straight, which two main parts: the anabolism and the catabolism. Two processes. This is the anabolism is the building up process. It uses energy and raw material from food to create new molecules and tissues, like repairing muscle and building bones. Catabolism, this is the breaking down process. It breaks down complex molecules from food and release energy the body can use. After they enter the cell, other enzymes act to speed up or regulate the chemical reaction involved with metabolizing these compounds. During this process, the energy from these compounds can be released for use by the body or stored in the body tissue, especially the liver, muscle and body fat. Metabolism is a balancing act involving two kinds of activities that go on at the same time: building up body tissue and the energy store, which called anabolism; breaking down body tissue and the energy store to get more fuel for body function, and they call catabolism. These two processes occur together spontaneously. Sometimes the regulation, many factors influence your metabolic rate, which is the speed with which these reactions occur. These factors involve age, sex, muscle mass and physical activity. The anabolism, constructive metabolism, is all about building and storing. It supports the growth of new cells, the maintenance of the body tissue, and the storage of energy for the future use. In anabolism, small molecules change into larger, more complex molecules of carbohydrate, protein, fat. Catabolism, destructive metabolism, is the process that produces the energy needed for all activities in the cell until break down large molecules, mostly carb and fat, to release energy. And this provides fuel for anabolism, heat the body, and enable the muscle to contract and the body to move. As complex chemical units break down into more simple substances, the body releases the waste product through the skin, kidney, lung, intestine. What control metabolism? Several hormones of the endocrine system help control the rate and the direction of the metabolism. Thyroxine, a hormone made and released by the thyroid gland, plays a key role in determining how fast or slow the chemical reaction of the metabolism go in a person's body. Pancreas secretes hormone that help determine whether the body main metabolism activity at any one time are anabolic or catabolic. For example, more anabolic activity usually happen after you eat a meal. That because eating increases the body level of glucose, the body's most important fuel. The pancreas senses this increasing glucose level and release hormone called insulin, which signals cells to increase their anabolic activity. Metabolism is a complicated chemical process. Not surprising that many people think of it in simple sense as something that influences how easy your body gain or lose weight. That is where calories come in. A calorie is a unit that measures how much energy a particular food provides to the body. A chocolate bar has more calories than an apple, so it provides the body with more energy, and sometimes that can be too much of good thing. Just as a car stores gas in the gas tank until it needed to fuel the engine, the body stores calories primarily as fat. If you overfill a car's gas tank, it spills over onto the pavement. Likewise, when a person eats too many calories, they spill over in the form of excess body fat. The number of calories sometimes burned in a day is affected by how much that person exercises, the amount of fat and muscle in his or her body, and the person's basal metabolic rate. BMR is a measure of the rate at which a person's body burns energy in the form of calories while at rest. The BMR, basic metabolic, can play a role in the person's tendency to gain weight. For example, someone with a low basic metabolic rate, therefore burn fewer calories with at rest or sleeping, will tend to gain more pounds of body fat over time than a similar sized person with an average BMR, basic metabolic rate, who eats the same amount of food and gets the same amount of exercise. There is a currency: you expend or you gain. The energy or calories you gain and the calories you expend. You compare both of them. Which of which is more you gain or you lose? Fat and weight. Basic metabolic rate can affected by a person's genes and by some health problems. It's also influenced by body composition. People with more muscle and less fat generally have higher body metabolic rate. Basal metabolic rate. But people can change their basal metabolic rate in certain ways. For example, a person who exercises more not only burns more calories but become more physically fit, which increases his or her basal metabolic rate. Thank you. This process is called scientific inquiry. Scientific inquiry begins with the observation of something unknown, which led to the scientist to ask questions. Scientists follow an organized system to conduct their research of their unknown factor. This system is called the scientific method. Scientific method, the use of a system of experimentation and analysis to explore observations and answer questions. Scientists use scientific method to help them find evidence, make observation, and organize new information. This system includes several steps that help scientists conduct their experiment. The scientific method starts with a single question. The type of question asked creates the boundaries for the experiment. The more specific the question is, the more focused the experiment will be. Using the scientific method is like building a house. The initial question could be thought of as the foundation of the house, just as a shaky foundation can cause a house to fall apart. Not having a clear, specific question can prevent an experiment from having a direction and then failing. Once a question has been posed, scientists conduct background research to gather information about the experiment they need to perform. Scientists use the information they have found to make an assumption about the answer to their question. Hypothesis is a possible explanation for an observation or problem that can further be tested by experimentation. There can be many various hypotheses proposed to answer a single question. However, there should be only one experiment for each hypothesis. The hypothesis, the proposed answer to a scientific question. The plural, hypothesis. Biologists use experiment to test hypotheses. During the experiment, they study variables, factors that can change an experiment result. There are two different variables. An independent variable is a condition that has been changed before an experiment. A dependent variable is a factor that is influenced by the independent variable. It's what is considered in the experiment, a procedure used to test a hypothesis. Independent variable, a change is made to a condition. Independent variable, the result showing the effect of the change made. There is independent variable and dependent variable. Any data from the experiment, even if the data prove the hypothesis wrong, is collected and analyzed in a results steps. This analysis can be done by the team performing the experiment or by other scientists after results are gathered and analyzed. Conclusion can be made. These conclusions are important and may result in the need for a brand new experiment, which is why collecting all the results is important. After the analysis, scientists compare the conclusion and the original hypothesis. They ask this analysis can be done by the team performing the experiment or by another scientist. After results are gathered and analyzed, conclusions can be made. These conclusions are important and may result in the need for a brand new experiment, which is why collecting all the results is important. After analysis, scientists compare the conclusion and the original hypothesis. They ask, does the conclusion confirm or support the hypothesis? If it does, then the experiment is complete and the results are considered the answer to the question. When a hypothesis is supported by the result of an experiment, the hypothesis becomes a theory. If the hypothesis is not supported, a new hypothesis must be made and tested. In these cases, the scientific method begins the cycle again from the conclusion that proved the hypothesis wrong to a new hypothesis, to more experimentation. Does the conclusion support the hypothesis? Yes or no? Yes, you have a theory. No, back to the drawing board with a new hypothesis. The final step in the scientific method is the sharing of the result. Publishing the result enables the scientific and the medical communities to evaluate the findings themselves. It also provides instructions so that other researchers can repeat the experiment, build on it, and verify and or confirm result. The result should also be shared with other scientists who may be able to use those results in their own experiment in the future. Results are often shared in scientific journals, which are written by scientists who perform the experiment. In the case of clinical studies, published results can help make information decision about a person's health behavior. This is the abbreviation of scientific method. Ask or identify a problem. Conduct background research. Create hypothesis. After that, test the hypothesis with an experiment. Make observation and collect data. Analyze result. If conclusion are false, change variable and begin again. Share the result. Check your knowledge. What is the purpose of the scientific method? Must be created before the scientific method can be used. What helps focusing the approach of the experiment? What is the purpose of doing background research? How do scientists conduct experimentation? What happens to the dependent variable when a change is made to the independent variable? What is the purpose of sharing result? What is the purpose of analyzing steps? If the conclusion proves the hypothesis is wrong, what is the next step? The process of scientific inquiry can be what? The scientific method helps scientists the answers. The scientific method helps scientists structure their research. The Inquiry must be created before the scientific method can be used. The inquiry or question. A specific question. Number 3. What help with focusing the scope of the experiment? Specific question help focusing the scope of experiment. Background research is used to make an assumption about the answer to the question. Number 4. Scientific tool and observation. How do scientists conduct experimentation? By using scientific tool and observation. The dependent variable will also change. The sharing result steps is for a scientist to share the result with the public and with few scientists. Number 8. What is the purpose of analysis? Analysis step. The purpose of analysis step, the analysis step allows you to examine your result to see if your hypothesis is supported. Number 9. If the conclusion proves the hypothesis is wrong, what is the next? The next step would be start the scientific method with a new hypothesis. Number 10. The process of scientific inquiry can be a cycle. Characteristic of life. All living things share the same characteristic of life. They are made up of one or more cells. Cells are the basic units of life. They need energy to live. They respond to stimuli. They react to their environment. For instance, light, temperature, touch, stimuli, anything that causes a response. Life functions. All living things must have the potential to carry out certain behavior known as life functions. Life functions are processes that an organism takes on to help it survive. Life functions are the processes that an organism takes on to help it survive. The life functions are growth, an increase in number of cells. Some organisms, in order to live better in an environment, need more cells. As more cells are made, the organism goes through the process of growth. Adults are larger in size than babies because they have more cells. The growth in their growth helps them live better in their environment. For example, human babies, other offspring are born in one form and then change as they grow to another. Like organism, when one parent organism reproduces by itself, the process is called asexual reproduction. The offspring look like the parent. Bacteria usually reproduce asexually. When two parents reproduce, it's called sexual reproduction. Many plants and animals are sexual reproduction or reproducer, and the process is called sexual reproduction. Nutrition. The taking in the food, the nutrient, taking in of food or nutrient, any substance that promote life and provide energy. Nutrient, any substance that promote life and provide energy. All living things need nutrients to survive. Nutrients keep an organism healthy. Organisms can be categorized according to how they get their nutrients. Autotrophs, organisms that can make their own food, such as plants, in the process of photosynthesis. Heterotroph, organisms that can't make their own food, such as animals. Auto comes from the Greek root autos, meaning self. Hetero comes from the Greek root heteros, meaning other. Trophs comes from the Greek root trophs, meaning one who is nourished. Autotrophs are nourished by themselves, and heterotrophs are nourished by others. Respiration, the breakdown of nutrients to get energy. After nutrients are ingested, metabolism begins. There are two metabolic processes. anabolism and catabolism, digestion, where nutrients are broken down into simpler forms that are easier for the organism. Metabolism, the set of chemical reactions that maintain the life of an organism. Cellular respiration, using glucose and oxygen along with chemical reaction to produce energy from nutrient. Transport, in human, it involves, for example, the movement of nutrient from the stomach to the cells. Before simple nutrient can be used by cells, they must first be transported from the stomach through the body in a process called circulation. The movement of something through the body of an organism. Once the nutrients reach the cell, they are absorbed and become part of the process of respiration. Synthesis, the use of energy to build more complex chemicals within the body, such as carbohydrates and proteins. When an organism gets energy it needs, it can create complex chemicals that perform various tasks. For example, it can create protein, which helps support the structure and function of the body. Excretion, remove the waste product from the body. Not all substances ingested are nutrients. Some of these substances are not useful to an organism. In this case, the organism excrete the substance. There are some substances that act as both nutrient and a waste product. After the organism excretes it, they must replace the product by ingesting or creating more of it. Water is an example of material that human ingest. It is also waste product. We drink it and also we excrete it, for example, as a sweat or as urine. Regulation, organisms survive in changing environment by changing the condition within their bodies. Organisms sense what is happening in their environment and adapt to any change in other to maintain homeostasis. The homeostasis, a state of steady internal physical and chemical condition set by the body. Homeostasis keeps an organism alive despite a changing external environment. Homeostasis comes from the Greek word hemio, meaning same, stasis meaning state. The main state or keeping this state, homeostasis described as a state in which something remains the same. An example, homeostasis in human: when it's hot, we sweat to cool down our bodies. When it's cold, we shiver, which help warm up our bodies. An organism body can also change over time to better fit a new environment. This process is called adaptation. Some evolving creatures may gain new traits that help them survive in the environment. Adaptation, a behavior or physical characteristic that allow an organism to survive or reproduce in its environment. Adaptation are change in species that occur over many generations due to environmental pressure. The organisms don't make a conscious choice to adapt. Adaptation can be behavioral or physiological. Camels are adapted to living in the desert. They are known to be able to survive without drinking water for 6 or 7 months. When you introduce a cup of water for the camel, he say, "No, thank you, I am fine." Check the knowledge. What are the 3 characteristics of all living things? What are life functions? Growth is the increase in the amount of which within an organism. What is the outcome of the reproduction? What form of reproduction do bacteria usually undergo? Why are nutrients important? What are the methods by which nutrients can be gained? When a substance is not useful to the body, it is what is the purpose of the homeostasis? How does adaptation impact on organism's ability to survive in their environment? Number 1 question: what are the 3 characteristics of all living things? They are made of cells, need energy to survive and respond to stimuli. Made of cells, need energy, respond to stimuli. Number 2, what are life functions? The processes that an organism takes on that help it survive. The process that an organism takes on that help it. Number 3, growth is the increase in the amount of cells. What is the outcome of reproduction? The creation of new organisms. What form of reproduction do bacteria usually undergo? Asexual reproduction. Why are nutrients important? Nutrients are substances that promote life and provide energy. What are the methods by which nutrients can be gained? Nutrients can either be created by the organism or ingested. When a substance is not used to the body, it's excreted either in urine, either in a sweat. What is the purpose of homeostasis? Homeostasis maintains the stability of the body internal environment. Stability of the body internal environment. How does adaptation impact on organism ability to survive in their environment? An organism may gain new traits that can either help it survive in its environment or prevent its survival. Thank you. Classification. What's classification? Classification, the process of organizing living things, is called classification. Scientists classify organisms by their structure and how closely related they are. They arrange them into groups and categorize based on the features they have in common. Scientists classify organisms by their structure and how closely related they are. They arrange them into groups and categories based on the features they have in common. Classification hierarchy. Taxonomists, scientists who classify organisms, developed categories to organize every discovered organism. The categories are domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Order. The order of categories from the broadest at the top: domain, the kingdom, the phylum, the class, the order, the family, the genus, the species. It looks like an upside down the pyramid. The species. See, it gets more specific. Use this mnemonic to recall the classification system. Dominating, prefer cheese over fried green Spanish. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. There are fewer and fewer organisms as you get to the more specific categories. So a kingdom has many more organisms than a genus. Domain. The domain is the highest rank in the classification system. It's the broadest of all categories. Domain divides life from it into three categories: eukarya, bacteria, archaea. All organisms fall under these three groups: eukarya, bacteria, and archaea. Kingdom has the second highest rank in the classification system. It's divided into 6 groups: archaea, bacteria, eubacteria, protista, fungi, plantae, and animalia. Organisms within each kingdom have different characteristics from organisms into another kingdom. Archaea bacteria. From the archaea domain, single-celled organisms live in extreme environment, hot, toxic, acidic, or salty. Eubacteria. From the bacteria domain, single-celled organisms live in everywhere that archaea bacteria don't. There are more bacteria living in your mouth than there are humans living on Earth, but most of them are harmless. Protista from the eukarya domain, single-celled or multicellular organism can be similar to fungi, Plantae, or Animalia kingdom in behavior and structure. Fungi from eukarya domain, single-celled or multicellular organisms are decomposers, mainly live in soil, break down and recycle nutrients back into the environment. Plantae, also known as the plant kingdom, from the eukarya domain, multicellular organisms, a primary producer for oxygen. Plants are crucial to the life of most every other organisms. Animalia, also known as the animal kingdom, from the eukarya domain, multicellular organisms breathe oxygen during the process of metabolism. Phylum, the phylum organisms in different phyla, plural of phylum, have different traits from one another. In the animal kingdom, there are many phyla. These phyla are divided into two categories. Vertebrates have a backbone for protection and mobility, make up to 3% of all phyla in the animal kingdom. Example: mammals, fish, amphibian, birds, reptiles. Invertebrates have no backbone, make up 97% of all phyla in the animal kingdom. Example: arthropod, lobster, crabs, insects, spiders, mollusks, worms. Because vertebrates have so few organisms in comparison to invertebrates, they have their own phyla chordata. All chordata organisms in the chordata group have these features at the same point in their life: a pharyngeal slit, opening that connects the inside of the throat to the hips outside the neck, sometimes develop into gills. Dorsal nerve cord runs down the back of the animal, connecting the brain with muscle and the other organs. Dorsal nerve cord, or the vertebral column in the human. Notochord, a rod running beneath the nerve cord and supporting it. Notochord. Post-anal tail, a section of the body that extends beyond the anus, used for the movement in many vertebrates like human. Some of these features appear only during the embryonic stage before the organism is born. Classes: organisms classified as chordata are separated further into groups called classes. There are 7 classes in all: fish class, Aganatha, Jawless, Chondrichthyes, cartilaginous, and Osteichthyes, bony. Amphibian, amphibia, Reptilia, reptiles, and Aves, birds, Mammalia, mammals. Even though these organisms are for various classes, they are related because they are all vertebrates. Order: there are different groups of animals in each class. These groups are called orders. For example, primates are an order within the Mammalia class. Animals in the primate order are known for having large brain compared to their body, with flat nails on their fingers instead of claws, and demonstrates social organization. Primates include apes, gorilla, orangutans, lemurs, and baboons. Lemurs and orangutans. Family is a subgroup of order. For example, there are 16 families within the primate group. One of the primate family is Humanidae, also known as great apes. Great apes are known to have a large body size, no tail, and eat both plant and other animals. Gorillas and orangutans are part of the Humanidae family. All members of this family can recognize themselves in mirror This type of self-awareness is only possible in complex brain genus. There are 4 genera, plural of genus, in the Humanidae family: Homo, humans; Bungo, orangutans; and gorilla, genus name is gorilla; Ban, chimpanzee; and baboons. The Homo genus is composed of organisms that walk primarily on 2 legs, can make tools to solve problems, and have well-developed opposable thumbs that can touch the other fingers, giving the ability to grab objects. Homo comes from the Latin word hominis, which means human being. Only humans exist in this genus. Species. The smallest and the most specific unit of classification is a species. Species are group of organisms with similar characteristics that are able to reproduce only with one another. For example, human can reproduce only with other human. There were once 3 species within the Homo genus: the habilis, the erectus, and the sapiens. Now there is only one, the sapiens. The other 2 species have no living members. Modern human fall under the sapiens species. This species is separated from the other species by the size of its skull, which developed to protect its large brain. Sapiens are capable of making advanced tools for both survivability and entertainment. Example of species classification: domesticate, domain, Eukaryota, organism with complex cells; kingdom Animalia, phylum Chordata, class Mammalia, order Carnivora, family Felidae, genus Felis, species Catus. Binomial nomenclature. Biologists use Carlos Linnaeus system of classification when referring to an organism. Linnaeus system, which entail naming species using 2 terms, is called binomial nomenclature. The just means a name with 2 terms. The first word defines the genus, which is the smallest group of similar species, and the second word defines the species itself. Binomial nomenclature is sort of like a first and last name. The first and the last name, one is more specific than the other. Binomial nomenclature helps scientists from all over the world know which organism have which characteristic. Example of binomial nomenclature system: human, Homo sapiens; canis familiaris, dogs, canis familiaris; cats, Felis catus. Binomial comes from the Latin prefix bi, which means 2, and the Latin word nomia, which means third. Nomenclature comes from the Latin word nomen, meaning name, and clatra, meaning calling. Binomial nomenclature translated 2-term naming. Check your knowledge. What is the purpose of classification? What are the highest and the lowest level of classification? How are eubacteria, archobacteria different? Which of the kingdoms survive best in the hot and the acidic environment? What is the special characteristic of fungi? The phylum of organisms with a backbone is called what? What are fish, amphibian, reptile, birds, and mammalian related? What species do human beings belong to? A 2-term name is called a what? 2 groups make up the 2-term naming system to organize the organisms that have been and will be discovered. What is the purpose of classification? The purpose of classification, the answer: to organize the organisms that have been and will be discovered. Number 2, question number 2: what are the highest and lowest level of classification? Domain is the highest classification, species is the lowest. Number 3, how are eubacteria and archobacteria different? Archobacteria live in extreme environment. Eubacteria live in all other places that are not extreme. Number 4, which of the kingdoms survive best in hot and acidic environment? Archobacteria. Number 5, what is the special characteristic of fungi? Fungi are decomposer. Their function is to help break down and recycle nutrients into the environment. Number 6, the phylum of organism with a backbone is called chordata. Number 7, how are fish, amphibian, reptile, birds, and mammal related? 7, they all have a backbone. What species do human beings belong to? Number 9, Homo sapiens. Number 9, auto term name is called a binomial. What two groups make up the two-term naming system? The genus and the species. In cellular biology, organisms, as we know, require their cells to divide for the purpose of reproduction, growth, development, and repair. Cellular division is divided into two phases, mitosis and cytokinesis. Mitosis involves the division of the nuclear chromosome, while cytokinesis is the division of the cytoplasmic component into new daughter cells. Serious consequences such as cancer can occur if the cell cycle is disrupted in some way. Mitosis. This is the process by which a cell replicate its chromosome and then segregate them, producing two identical nuclei in preparation for cell division. Mitosis is generally followed by equal division of the cell's content into two daughter cells that have identical genomes. Here the two daughter cells, and here the phases: prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. What is the main difference between mitosis and meiosis? In mitosis, two genetically identical daughter cells from single parent cell, whereas in meiosis produce cells that are genetically unique from the parent and contain only half as much DNA. Most cells in the body regularly go through mitosis, but some do so more often than others. Here in the process of oogenesis or spermatogenesis, meiosis occurs to form a sperm and ovum. DNA and RNA. What is molecular biology? Molecular biology is the branch of biology that studies the molecular basis of biological activity. In other words, it examines the composition, structure, and interaction of cellular molecules such as nucleic acid, DNA, or RNA, and protein that carry out the biological process essential for cells' function and maintenance. Or we can say is a study of subcellular structures, their interaction, and how they function in the biological process of the cell. In particular, nucleic acid are important molecules that carry information that lead to the production of protein. Molecular biology research has revolutionized our understanding of life and has led to significant advancement in various fields, including medicine, biotechnology, and agriculture. Here is closer look at some of the core areas of study in molecular biology. The protein are physical expression of the genetic information in cell. The nucleic acid, desoxyribonucleic acid, and the ribonucleic acid RNA are important molecules that carry genetic information throughout the cell. Like an architect's blueprint, nucleic acid have a set of rules that lead to synthesis of the major building blocks of living things. DNA and RNA, as their names indicate, desoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, and ribonucleic acid, RNA, are both nucleic acid. Any nucleic acid is polymer made up of monomers called nucleotides. Any nucleotide consists of three components: a pentose, 5-carbon sugar, pentose, and a nitrogenous base attached to the pentose and a phosphate group also attached to the pentose. Here the double helix of the RNA, the difference between DNA and RNA. RNA also features 4 kinds of nucleotide, and the nitrogenous bases are nearly the same as for DNA, except the RNA use uracil instead of thymine. DNA functions for self-replication before a cell divides into 2 cells, and for transcription, a process that produces RNA. For DNA, the specific pentose in each of its nucleotide is desoxyribose, whereas in RNA, ribose is the pentose sugar. There are normally 4 kinds of DNA nucleotide because there are 4 normal nitrogenous bases used in DNA: adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. There are different functional categories of RNA, including messenger RNA, transfer RNA, ribosomal RNA, and others. We can see DNA, how it's important. After, you should be able to explain the difference between RNA and DNA, identify the 3 types of RNA, and discuss the central dogma of how information follows from gene to proteins. Nucleic acids are complex that store and transmit hereditary information in living organisms. They are found in all cells and the virus and are essential for life. There are 2 main types of nucleic acid: desoxyribonucleic acid DNA and ribonucleic acid RNA. DNA is the genetic material that contains the instruction for building and maintaining an organism. It's found in the nucleus of the cell and is made up of 2 long sugar phosphate backbone linked together by nitrogenous bases. The nitrogenous bases are adenine, guanine, cytosine, thymine. The order of these bases in DNA determine the genetic code. What is the function of DNA? Store genetic information, enable reproduction, control protein synthesis, allow for evolution. Store genetic in DNA. DNA carries the instructions for building and maintain an organism. Enable reproduction. DNA is passed down from parent to offspring during reproduction. Control protein synthesis. DNA contains the instructions for making protein, which are essential for all cellular processes, either hormones or enzymes. Allows for evolution. Change in DNA sequence. Mutation can lead to variations in organisms which can be beneficial or harmful. These variations can be passed down to offspring, allowing for evolution over time. RNA, the shorter single-strand molecules that play a variety of roles in cells, including carrying genetic information from DNA to the ribosome, where proteins are made. RNA is also involved in protein synthesis, regulation of gene expression, and other cellular processes. There are 3 main types of RNA: messenger RNA, ribosomal RNA, transfer RNA. The RNA ribonucleic acid is a complex molecule essential for various biological functions, either directly performing the function itself, non-coding RNA, or by acting as an intermediate between DNA and RNA protein production. Messenger, along with desoxyribonucleic acid, belong to a class of molecules called nucleic acid. This is an overview of the molecular biology, and there are other courses speak about the genetics in full detail.